Perfect. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our last webinar as part of a Pierce County Affordable Housing Week. I'm Amanda DeShazo, happy to host this conversation webinar that we're having today. I'm the Executive Director of the Affordable Housing Consortium. We provide education and advocacy to support the development of affordable housing and preservation in Pierce County. So today we are here because of Pierce County Affordable Housing Week. It's our last day. We're doing a big wrap up. It's been fantastic, and thank you everybody for joining us. So today you'll be hearing from Corporation for Supportive Housing. We have the webinar. It's called Equity in Action: Empowering BIPOC Developers Through the Race Initiative. And like I said, today's event will be recorded and sent out to everyone. So I would like to also thank our title sponsor, U.S. Bank, for allowing us to host this webinar today. Without their support, Affordable Housing Week wouldn't have been possible. And I would also like to start us off with a land acknowledgement. So we gratefully honor and acknowledge that we rest on the traditional lands of the Puyallup people. The Puyallup people have lived on this land since the beginning of time. They are still here today. They live, work, raise their children, take care of their community, and continue to practice their traditional ways. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and we commit to uplifting the voices, experiences, and histories of the Indigenous people of this land and beyond. We want to acknowledge the histories of dispossession and forced removal, and reflect on this history in ways that honor the memory of those dispossessed and keep us committed to the cause of social justice for Indigenous populations. So again, today's webinar will shine a spotlight on the innovative efforts of the Corporation for Supportive Housing, which we'll also call CSH, to address systemic barriers faced by BIPOC developers in the affordable and supportive housing sectors. So we're honored to have with us two esteemed presenters who are at the forefront of this work. First, we have Alexis Butler. She's the director of the Race Initiative, whose leadership and dedication are driving transformative change in the real estate industry. And joining Alexis is Rachel Mokry. She's the Senior Community Investment Officer of Northwest, whose expertise and passion for community development have made her a respected leader in the field, and also my friend. In this webinar, Alexis and Rachel will delve into the challenges contributing to the underrepresentation of BIPOC-led firms in the real estate industry. Despite the pressing need for diversity and equity in housing development, just 2% of firms are Black-led, a statistic that underscores the urgency of the work being done through initiatives like the RACE initiative. And they will outline how the RACE, which stands for Redesigning Access by Centering Equity, RACE initiative, is actively bridging access to capital and building capacity for BIPOC developers through innovative financing solutions and comprehensive technical assistance. With an ambitious goal to raise and distribute $65 million in support to BIPOC-owned or led developers, the RACE initiative is poised to fundamentally shift the landscape towards a more equitable industry. Attendees will gain insights into how CSH collaborates with local government partners to prioritize equity and funding decisions and the tangible impacts these efforts have on the community. So throughout the webinar, we encourage you to engage with our presenters. You can ask questions in the chat, and then we will share time at the end for you to have open discussion. And please feel free to also share your own insights and experiences. This session is essential for policymakers, industry professionals, community leaders, and anyone committed to an inclusive economic environment and housing development. So again, thank you all for joining us today. And without further ado, I will hand it over to Alexis and Rachel to kick off our discussion.
Thanks, Amanda. Thank you so much for having us. And I will also say our presentation may be 20 minutes because you covered the first 6 slides that we have. But at any rate, I will bring up our slides here. There we go. And we'll just start by giving a warm welcome to each of you for being here with us on a Friday afternoon, which I hear is lovely. I'm super excited to spend some time with you along with my colleague, Rachel. A bit about our presentation today, and then we'll give some formal introductions. We'll just echo Amanda's wonderful introduction, share a little more about CSH and supportive housing, and more specifically the RACE initiative and why we are committed to this work, and continue to pursue racial equity outcomes in lending, in housing finance, and development. We'll talk a little bit about what the Race Initiative is, our goals, and then specifically how we're diffusing these goals through lending, technical assistance, and other tools and resources. And I'm super excited to highlight some upcoming opportunities that are specifically in Washington that are available for each of you to access, and then we'll hold time for Q&A, discussion, or just getting to know each other a little bit better. I will introduce myself more formally. My name is Alexis Butler. I am based in the great city of Chicago, Illinois, and I am the National Director of the Race Initiative here at CSH, where I oversee our strategy, lending, and technical assistance for the program we'll chat about today. And I'm so grateful to be here with my colleague, Rachel, who I will turn it over to for an introduction.
Great. Thank you, Alexis. I'm Rachel Mokry, and I am here in Seattle. And I am the Senior Community Investment Officer for CSH, and I cover our lending program for Washington and Oregon.
Awesome. Thanks, Rachel. As we begin, I just want to say a quick hello to those here. And so I see Erica and Casey and Tiffany. I think I saw Alyssa. So glad to be here with you all. Look forward to engaging with others who are in the room with my limited window. To get to business about CSH, the Corporation for Supportive Housing, we are the national leaders in supportive housing, and we execute this work through three primary lines of business. So the first is through our community investment arena. CSH is a national CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, and through this work, we are intentional about investing resources to increase the availability and sustainability of quality, affordable housing that is aligned with services across the U.S. and within U.S. territories. We build on that work through what we call strengthening the field, and so really focusing on the training, the technical assistance, and thought leadership in ways that we can partner with each of you, and more broadly, the supportive housing and affordable housing field, to really submit through quality supportive housing for generations to come. And then our last line of business is around policy and advocacy. CSH is not only committed to this work, but we want to see this work continue to flourish for generations to come. And so we do that by really focusing on policy, legislative channels, advocacy, to ensure that there are policies, funding, and resources to secure supportive housing in each of the states within our country. And we are surely getting close. A quick note around supportive housing, if this is your first introduction or if you're a longtime friend, supportive housing is a proven housing model that combines affordable housing with services that people who face the most complex challenges to live are then met with stability, autonomy, and dignity. When CSH speaks about supportive housing, we're looking at 6 primary factors to really, again, infuse in housing stability and quality opportunity. The first is really around engaging households with multiple barriers to housing access. The second is ensuring that the housing is affordable and remains affordable. The third is that each housing opportunity provides tenant with a lease. And so there is no time restriction to the housing opportunity. And then the fourth is that the supportive housing will engage tenants in flexible voluntary services. We advocate for intensive case management services, but those services are not a requirement in order to access or remain in the housing. And then lastly, it's really about our ecosystem, with supportive housing focusing on coordinating with key partners within the community, be that service providers, property managers, and other advocacy resources. And then lastly, making sure that tenants are connected with community. We see housing as a holistic piece of the community landscape. And so making sure that there are touch points to life-giving resources, life-sustaining resources more broadly. A last note here, when we talk about supportive housing here at CSH, we're also focusing on the development side, how we are both creating new and then also retaining opportunities for housing in the field. And so for CSH, we focus our work around new development, acquisition rehab, and then also master lease opportunities for single site or scatter site housing. All of this is the natural foundation in which the Race Initiative exists here at CSH. And so as Amanda shared, Race Initiative stands for Redesigning Access by Centering Equity. And this is the centerpiece of our work here at CSH to both elevate and address the systemic inequities that have stagnated the success of Black, Indigenous, and other developers of color who are in the housing development field. So through our national effort here at CSH, we address these challenges by increasing BIPOC developers' access to low barrier capital, delivering no-cost training and technical assistance, as well as pursuing policy and systems levels reform. More specifically, when we think about how do we deploy the Race Initiative and what activities are we pursuing, on the lending side, we're focused on early pre-development and acquisition loans for supportive housing development. My colleague Rachel will touch on that here in a second. We also have been able to provide very low restriction capacity building grants for BIPOC developers to support needs such as development costs, operational costs, and other things that are really contributing to that organization and the BIPOC developer thriving within the supportive housing landscape. And then lastly, again, an echo theme here is really around our tailored training and technical assistance, where through the Race Initiative, we're able to offer one-to-one technical assistance, where CSH staff can be of partnership to you in your supportive housing endeavors, and really focusing on quality, efficiency, and sustainability with both the lending and development process. And then lastly, focusing on really our advocating for policies that reduce barriers for BIPOC developers, be that through funding opportunities, development opportunities, and more. We are so excited at CSH to continue to rethink how we can grow the Race Initiative. And with that, we have expanded our goals. And so through 2025, our goal is to really infuse $200 million that would be invested in BIPOC-led developments. And so super proud to report that as of the close of 2023, we are at about $170 million invested. So making our way towards that goal, and it'll be time to set it down. And then additionally, really focusing on the number of BIPOC developers that we are both engaging, supporting, and creating longstanding relationships with. And so we have set a goal to engage at least 75 developers, including 25 developers who are brand new to the field of supportive housing. Lastly, as I've shared, really focusing on our work when it comes to state funding and other government funding opportunities, such as the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program. And so we do have work here at CSH that focuses on racial equity considerations in QAPs, qualified allocation plans, as well as other state funding opportunities. Our big goal, all of this is leading into, is that here at CSH, over time, that we will shift our own lending portfolio to at least 50% of our lending will be invested in BIPOC developers, sustainable year over year, as our organization continues to grow. And so we're super excited about these goals. We're super excited to partner with many of you here today to advance these goals, and also to learn more about how CSH can be a resource and be of partnership to you. A last note here before I turn it over to Rachel, I just wanted to highlight our geographies where we're doing the Race Initiative work. And so the screen here has a map of the United States, and we have notated where CSH has our lending work. And so any market where CSH lends is a Race Initiative market. We have resources, both lending and technical assistance available in these states. But we're super excited to highlight and to expand markets in which we have what we call our intensive markets. In these intensive markets, such as New York, Connecticut, Illinois, Georgia, California, we have what we call communities of practice, where CSH is supporting a group of developers, BIPOC developers, over the course of a year to really come together to network, to engage, to collectively grow our capacity in pursuit of the supportive housing field. We are so proud, so excited. As of this year, our Race Initiative intensive markets have been submitted in the states of Washington and Oregon due to the gracious funding and partnership of the U.S. Bank Foundation's Opportunity Fund. And so I just want to say a quick thank you to U.S. Bank and we look forward to expanding our partnership here in the coming months. With that, I will turn it over to Rachel to talk a little more about the lending opportunities under the Race Initiative.
All right, great. Thank you, Alexis. So as mentioned before, I'm Rachel Mokry. I do our lending for Washington and Oregon. So I'm going to share with you all today a little bit more about our lending program. So as Alexis explained, CSH is a CDFI, or a Community Development Financial Institution. And so we do lending across the US as that map showed. And so our lending products really are focused on pre-development and acquisition lending. So these are loan products that really help developers get to a point where they can actually start building their project or rehabbing their project. So before you can actually put a shovel in the ground, there's a lot of work that has to go into a project. You have to do a lot of feasibility studies, you have to find a site, you have to assemble your team. All of those things that come in the pre-development period end up costing a lot of money. And for an organization that doesn't have a lot of cash flow, or even for bigger organizations that do have cash flow that don't want to spend that money up front, this is really what our loan products are for, is to give you an infusion of cash ahead of time so that you can prepare your project. And then our loans are typically repaid when construction actually starts on the project. So our loan products, we have the project incentive loan, and this is really a smaller loan that's really to just get a group started. So if you are a group that has never done a development project before, and maybe you own a piece of property, and you just want to figure out like, hey, can we even do anything with this property? We don't know anything about the zoning. We don't know what the soil is like. We don't know what we can fit on this lot. You might want to just do a few feasibility studies to see what's possible. So we could give you a loan of up to $100,000 just to kind of do some assessment to see, is anything even possible to do here? Or maybe you don't have a piece of land and you want to hire someone to help you look for a piece of land for a project that you're thinking about. The goal then is to increase your loan size to our bigger pre-development loan, which can go up to $500,000 if it's unsecured, so that you can advance your project. You can start actually doing some of those architectural designs and environmental assessments. We are able to also help you purchase land. So if you don't already own your property, we can provide you an acquisition loan. And one thing that makes CSH unique compared to other CDFIs is we can go over 100% loan to value. So for example, if you're buying a piece of property that's $1 million, we can give you the $1 million to pay for your property to buy it. And then we can also give you up to $500,000 for your pre-development funding. If the land is over $1 million, we can go up to 130% loan to value. So we can still, if your land is expensive, we can give you still a big chunk of cash to help pay for that pre-development financing, because as I'm sure some of you know, $500,000 isn't usually enough to pay for all of your pre-development costs. And then we also do offer a developer fee bridge loan. This is one of our newer loan products that was recently developed. So this could be for folks that maybe have already done 1 or 2 projects before, and they're anticipating a developer fee from a former project, but they don't have it yet. And they might have some either cost overruns, or maybe they want to get started on another project. We would be able to bridge a portion of that developer fee that would then repay our loan with that developer fee once it's paid out. So these are just all of our general loan products, but what makes it unique for our race initiative lending is that we can charge a lower interest rate for groups that qualify for a race initiative lending. And certain groups also are able to have a grant that are, if they qualify for a race initiative grant. So right now, our race initiative loan rate is 5.95%, which is 85% of our standard rate. So Alexis, I'll have you go to the next page. So in order to qualify for CSH, since our focus is really on promoting supportive housing and qualitative supportive housing, We require that at least 10% of the units are considered supportive housing units, and that has to be at least 5 units. So if it's a smaller project, at least 5 of those units have to be considered supportive housing. There are a lot of CDFIs that offer similar loan products as us, and so if you're not doing supportive housing, I can also point you in the right direction for that sort of project. In order to qualify for the RACE initiative, you have to either be an organization that's led by a BIPOC organization, and if you're a nonprofit or service provider, you also have to have either 50% of your staff members or have the CEO identify as BIPOC, and the board members also 50%. So we can help. I can help you figure out if you would qualify, or Alexis can as well, to figure out if you would qualify for a race initiative loan. And then Alexis, you can go to the next page. I mentioned that some of our race initiative loans also come along with a grant. So if you are an emerging developer, which means that you have never completed a LIHTC or development project on your own, we would be able to give you a grant along with a loan that is equal to 1.5% of the loan. So with all of our loan products, we do charge a 1.5% loan fee. And if you're an emerging developer, we would essentially give you that 1.5% fee back to your organization for those capacity building activities. And we consider an established developer a group that's completed at least one LIHTC development before. Those are our loan products in a nutshell. I'm very excited to be able to offer this loan product here in Washington as well as Oregon. And we are happy to talk to anyone or provide you with more information. A lot of my work is just doing a lot of screening. So even if you're not sure if you would want a loan or you want more information about it, I'd be happy to talk with you all. And I think my email address is shown on the next page, and I can also drop it in the chat. And I can also drop our general term sheet and link to our lending products page in the chat as well. And I think we'll save questions maybe till the end so we can kind of keep our flow going. So with that, I think I will pass it back to Alexis.
Thanks, Rachel. Quick notes here around some other offerings of the RACE initiative around our technical assistance and then our resources. As I shared, a lot of text here. Will just kind of leave this as a resource post our webinar today. But our technical assistance for the RACE initiative really is focused on 3 primary areas. And so the first, as I shared, is really focused on one-to-one partnership. And so really the CSH can partner with you to really focus on strategy related to identifying financial or capital sources and other supportive housing opportunities within your local area. And then can also do advisement on fund development, fundraising, and just any opportunities that we may be aware of that can support your supportive housing development goals. The next area is around tool and resource development. Beyond your time one-to-one with CSH is also developing things such as the Supportive Housing Development Decision Guide, which is really purposed to be a project management and learning aid for those who are looking to better learn the supportive housing field, or if you're like me, just always looking to sharpening your skills, that is a resource that we have provided. And then we also have things such as the organizational assessment tool that you can use to really identify, as an organization, are you ready to pursue development? What resources or supports may you need to pursue a supportive housing development? And then again, where those resources are within the ecosystem and how CSH can help you pursue those opportunities. Lastly, which I will touch on here, is around our training and capacity building. And so through our standardized training modules here at CSH, such as our supportive housing institutes and academies, as well as our online supportive housing training center, we are committed and always trying to further develop opportunities for you to engage with the supportive housing field on your own time as it relates to learning and resource building opportunities. I just want to highlight a quick example here from our Los Angeles market. Few of my friends here in the picture with big smiling faces. Last year, the Race Initiative launched our first community of practice in the Los Angeles market. And so through this opportunity, CSH was able to partner with and support 7 organizations in the LA County area, and specifically focusing on co-learning sessions that were really geared around networking opportunities, not only amongst the cohort, but with other leading entities in the area, such as government partners, funding partners, service providers, et cetera. And then also focusing again on providing that one-to-one technical assistance. One thing that we were super just appreciative to offer were pass-through grant fundings to each of the participant groups in the amount of $175,000. Again, very low restrictions, but focusing on the participants' capacity building and pre-development needs as they have determined for themselves, for their organizations. And so this model, this framework of a community of practice is now our model for the Race Initiative. And so reflecting on those intensive markets that I shared a few slides back, and now in Washington and Oregon, we're super excited to carry this model forward to really engage supportive housing developers and really be both an advocate and a champion for BIPOC developers to both grow in this field and remain in this field for generations to come. A quick highlight that our work in LA was funded by the Hilton Foundation, Kaiser Permanente, and the California Community Foundation. So we'll just give a quick thank you of much appreciation to our funders in that endeavor. Final resource here before we talk about local opportunities. As I shared, we recently launched the Supportive Housing Development and Decision Guide. And so just wanted to share a little bit more. The Supportive Housing Development and Decision Guide is both a project management tool and a learning aid that is purposed to support development teams in navigating through the 5 stages of supportive housing development. And so this is an Excel-based tool that is available to anyone free of charge. And within the tool, you will find each phase of development from capacity, understanding, and preparedness. That's the internal kind of assessment for your organization. Moving forward to pre-development and feasibility, capital and financing, sprinting towards development, and then wrapping up with operations. Again, to really serve as a checklist, as a guide, as an additional resource to partner with you to really infuse quality standards in your supportive housing project. This resource, and we will put this in the chat, is available on our CSH website. And when you're using the guide, we just ask that you give us a little bit of information so we can keep in contact with you. But the link is here on the screen. We'll put it in the chat, and I'm happy to answer any questions here or in another time if you have interest in using this tool and would like to learn more. I'll turn it over to Rachel for our final few slides here.
Sure, great. So just to highlight a local project, last year we gave a loan to East African Community Services. We provided them an acquisition loan to purchase a property and also some pre-development financing to help pay for some of those pre-development costs. So they're planning to build a project called the Family Empowerment Center. It's going to, when completed, it's going to be 56 units of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. And 6 of the units are set aside for youth that are returning to the community from incarceration that will have services provided by EACS on site. So this project we gave an acquisition and pre-development loan to, even though they don't have all of their financing in place yet. So our loan is still in the pre-development phase with them. So we're still waiting for them to get all of their financing lined up until our loan is repaid. So that's just one example of one of the Race Initiative loans we've done here in Washington. And then moving on, just to mention one thing that's going on here in Washington right now, we are doing a training series called the Washington Supportive Housing Academy. And this is a training series that is free to anyone to attend. And it has several different types of trainings that are available for folks to sign up for. So you can sign up for all of the trainings, or you can sign up for just one of them. There have already been a few trainings that have been underway. So the next one should be on May 21st. I'll put a link in the chat as well so that you all can look at what trainings are left and you can sign up for them. I will note that we were supposed to have a training last week that ended up getting postponed. So that might be good news for anyone on this call that is interested in learning more about development and capital budgets, because that one will be done sometime in the next couple of weeks as well. And the last training session that's in July will be a funders panel specifically for supportive housing type projects. So we will be interviewing folks all the way from like a LIHTC investor and banker to local community funders and folks from the Housing Trust Fund and Apple Health and Homes. So yeah, we'll be happy to share more information about those upcoming trainings. And yeah, with that, I think, and so there's also, of course, the technical assistance that's available here. So we can provide free technical assistance to support your supportive housing. So you can get in touch with us by filling out this form to receive technical assistance. And with that, I think we are at the end of our formal presentation. So we're happy to answer any questions if folks want to just come off mute, or if you want to raise your hand. I think either works, or if you can't talk and you want to put it in the chat, that works as well.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you, Alexis. I don't see anybody coming off of mute, but I do have a question. I have a few questions that came up for me while watching your presentation. So I noticed that, often when we talk about permanent supportive housing, you had something on one of your slides that said, so 10% of the units have to be providing supportive services, and it said on-site. Does that mean that the services have to be available 24/7 on-site? Like somebody needs to be living there, or can it be, somebody comes to the house or the apartment and checks in on them? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the services don't necessarily have to be like located right in the building, but I think what we like to look for is if the services aren't going to be on site, how will they be accessed? So is there like a transportation plan, or like you said, is someone going to be coming to the building every day? Is there like space for folks to meet? And how will those services be provided if they're not on site? So I wouldn't say it's necessarily black or white, but it is definitely something that we look at when we're reviewing our loan applications to make sure that the services are accessible and quality.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe for folks who aren't as familiar with permanent supportive housing or supportive services, what are you looking for in terms of supportive services?
Yeah, so I would say generally with permanent supportive housing, that's really looking for folks that are either currently experiencing homelessness or formerly have experienced homelessness or are at risk of experiencing homelessness. And so those really are the folks that can't pay more than 30% AMI. They probably have either a project-based voucher or some sort of rental assistance to help them pay for their rent. And then the services that they're receiving, it just depends on the tenant population. So if it's a senior project, we want the services to be catered towards seniors. Or like the project that I highlighted, it was youth that were formerly incarcerated. So they likely would need help like getting access to a job and like job training type stuff. So it really depends on the tenant population. If it's single moms that are families, maybe they need access to healthcare or childcare. Yeah, so it depends on the tenants that are served, which can be the whole spectrum of folks.
Okay, that's great. And I'm gonna ask maybe a weird question too, because I know there are a lot of developers, particularly BIPOC developers, who want to build affordable housing, maybe haven't thought about the supportive services side. And so maybe they come across your product and they're interested because they think they might qualify for it. But the supportive services isn't something that they'd really thought of. Your response was kind of helpful, but how do you, I guess if somebody's interested in learning more, they should just reach out to you and ask, like, what could that look like, right?
Mhm.
Because you said it doesn't have to be necessarily on site, but I think of, somebody that's maybe doing 10 units, and then I think your requirement was 10% in order to qualify for some of the lending, or is that right?
10% are not less than 5 units. So if it was just a 10-unit building, half of those would have to be supportive housing. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So if they wanted to do 5 for supportive housing, would you guys be able to kind of walk them through that process of how we could go about doing that?
Mhm. Yeah, a lot of our technical assistance is helping to develop like a service plan and what that might look like. If it's a group that's strictly a developer and has never done services before, we likely would kind of point them in the direction of thinking about who's already providing services in the community and who could you partner with. So a lot of the projects that we see are more like a developer type and then a service provider, and they're like doing the project together. But we have a team that can help kind of point people in the right direction and think about what questions they should be asking.
Thanks, Rachel. And I'll just note for folks who are on the call who like haven't maybe thought about the supportive housing aspect, we have MDC in Pierce County who does provide a lot of those supportive services for developers who typically don't offer those services. So they're a really great community partner. We have both other nonprofits that work with them and for-profit developers that partner with MDC to provide services for folks who are in the housing. So yeah, that's one community partner that would be actually, they are actively interested in providing services. So if you're thinking about development and you're thinking about the race initiative being a potential funder for that, I would highly recommend that you reach out to MDC, and I'm happy to also provide that connection. I did have another question about the funding. It looks like Chanel has a question, so let's answer her question. I'm going to ask it so for folks who are watching the recording later, they know what the question is. So Chanel says, what about nonprofits such as churches, et cetera, that provide supportive services and looking at providing housing? Is there a different but similar offering since nonprofits aren't owned, or does a BIPOC-led nonprofit qualify?
Yeah, so BIPOC-led nonprofits definitely qualify. We also look to see if your board is also 50% BIPOC, or if your senior staff member are also 50% BIPOC. Yeah, so if you're a BIPOC-led nonprofit, you probably have a representative board and staff as well. And so we look at that, and you would definitely qualify. And I'll just say that most of our borrowers are nonprofits, not for-profits.
Thanks, Rachel. Hopefully that answered your question, Chanel. If you have a follow-up, please just go ahead and put it in the chat or come off mute. So I have another question about the funding. I know you guys said you just got awarded funding for Washington, Oregon, and California. Is that fund? I guess 2 questions. Is the funding that you received to help with the grants? Is everybody eligible for a grant that goes through the race initiative as like a cohort? Like what does that look like? I guess, do you have to get a loan product in order to get a grant? Like, can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's 2 different types of grants, and maybe Alexis can go more into the U.S. Bank one. So the grant that we offer for our race initiative loans is specifically for emerging developers. So if you're a developer that has never developed anything before, and you get a loan with us, we will give you a grant as you close your loan with us. Essentially, we'll give you back a grant that is equal to that 1.5% loan fee. So that grant is specifically tied to our lending products. And then Alexis, do you want to talk about the U.S. Bank funding?
Yeah, I'm happy to. And so for the program side of the race initiative, we will establish a community of practice or a training cohort in the Washington and Oregon areas, and then the participants of that cohort would be eligible for grant funding, as has been made available to us through U.S. Bank Foundation. We have not opened the application period for those training cohorts yet, but Amanda, I'll be sure, and we'll be sure to share that with you when the application period is live, so you can disperse that to your networks. And it also will be available on our CSH website.
Okay, thank you. And for folks that I know you said Washington and Oregon, is it going to be like a remote opportunity? Like, what's the likelihood that somebody from Pierce County is going to be able to access that program?
Yeah, so our training programs are traditionally in a hybrid format. So we'll do an opening in person that is statewide, and then coordinate resources around the reach of statewide. We're very inclusive. And then the majority of the actual training is in a virtual format.
Okay.
Repeat.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I said focusing on the accessibility. It would be accessible.
Oh, okay. Okay. And I'm sorry, did you say how long the community of practice is?
Yeah, so for Washington and Oregon, we are still working through the mechanics, but traditionally our programs are between 6 to 10 months.
I'm sorry, it was just a little bit hard to hear you. Said 6 to 10 weeks?
Months.
Months. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
That's a big difference.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's the idea that somebody that's maybe an emerging developer would enter into the communities of practice and get all of the tools that they need in order to start a development, and provide those supportive services once they leave the program.
That's correct. Yes. The goal of the communities of practice is to be what we call project ready and application ready. And so at the conclusion of one's time in the community of practice, really focusing on support with pursuing a supportive development project as well as pursuing financing for that project.
Okay, perfect. I think that's all the questions that I had. Does anybody else have any questions? Looks like Eric has a question. Eric, do you want to come back to me?
Yeah, you might have mentioned this before. Are these documents going to be available once this is over with for us to access the presentation slides?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we can share the presentation, and I also dropped a bunch of links into the chat that show some of the links that were in the presentation. But yeah, I think Alexis, I think we can share this presentation.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. Yeah, and the additional links were also great. And I also have one follow-up question as well. Are you finding that there are differences in interest levels based on various states? Obviously, there was the geographical spacing between West Coast and East Coast, and just where people's level of expertise varies from state to state. Are you finding that to be the case?
I don't see a big difference or variance in expertise from state to state. I think what we're finding here at CSH, specifically under the race initiative, in the markets where we do have our community of practice programming or our intensive programming, are states that have robust subsidy sources for supportive housing. And so we want to ensure at the completion of the program that there are funding sources available either through private sources or governmental sources to really support the services component of the project, as well as the affordability of the project. And so we're seeing synergy there with those measures.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay. All right, any more questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. So as I mentioned before, yes, I will be sending out a follow-up email to everybody who had RSVP'd. The information will be available on our website as well, and we will upload the recording so you can go back and watch any of the parts that you may have missed. Also, Rachel and Alexis have both provided their information, so you can definitely reach out to them with questions, and we will keep in contact to let everyone know when their program comes online and they're accepting applicants for that. So with that, everybody, I hope you have a really fantastic day and are able to get out and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you again for participating in Affordable Housing Week. We've really enjoyed having you all. And yeah, keep in touch, follow us on socials, and reach out to me if you need anything or you just want to talk affordable housing. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda, for for an incredible week. Really appreciate it.
You're sweet. Thank you, Eric.
All right.
Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for everything.